Well, thank you very much, Jim. I'm honored to be here and speak on behalf of the elderly. I'm 83 years old and I have retired 4 times, so I know all about it. But the interesting thing to me about my own retirement is what I have tried to do is adjust what I do to that stage of my life. Not drop off the table like a rolling marble, but what do I do next? I have had different illnesses, so I have adjusted to those. I have moved, so I adjusted to that. And now I'm 83 years old, and I am 5th year Parkinson's. But on medication, I'm doing what I can do at that stage. What's the next one? I don't know. But what I want to say to the elderly is not to look at a church that's full of gray hair and say, oh, well, they'll be all dead in 10 years. This church is going downhill. I don't care if you bring in 9 million young couples with small children. If you don't have the elderly, they're going to just scatter and go every direction, not knowing who they are. The elderly represent the stable life force in the church. But what an older person needs to do is to think about themselves in a category that's not left over from something else or envious of the young or dyeing the hair to look younger than I am, but to be proud of the fact that I'm 72 or 85 or whatever it is. And you're free now. You're free now. Not being employed by anybody in particular to do what you wanted to do for years. No inhibition. A lot of the retirees among us are ministers. In our little congregation, there are 24 retired ministers. And some of them still have a lot of vinegar. They just don't know it. They've already labeled themselves as retired. They got zip. I think we could start 100 new congregations this year, led by elderly ministers who've retired and decided, now I'm going to really do what I wanted to do. I think the one reason some ministers retire is they get tired of themselves. They're tired of their own voice, preaching the same old sermons. So don't go into retirement saying, well, I'll pick up a few supply pulpits and maybe an interim or two. That's just postponing the dead day. Change direction entirely. It may be the same, but it's after reflection and prayer and consultation. If I were traveling more, and I'm not, but if I were traveling more, when I went into a congregation, I'd say I would like to have one session with the people of the church who are over 72 years old and talk to them about rethinking your life. Don't believe this about the future of the church is in the babies. Well, it may be and it may not be. But the future of the church right now is the people who are in it now. And they're the wise and seasoned ones. But they're not called on except to fill in here or make a hospital call in the absence of the minister. Claim what time you have to continue to minister. Most of you who are retired will probably have made some wise investments, have some pension, so you don't have to charge for what you do. Don't feel bound to just take a job because it pays you $30 to preach. Assert your freedom and say, I'll do it for nothing if you'll let me do this and this and this and this. I haven't gotten paid for what I do in 18 years, not a nickel. But I have a pension fund and my teacher's pension from Emory, and we have comfortable living. We don't need any money. People say, well, that was very generous. It's not generous, it's freedom. It's freedom. I can live on my pension, 2 pensions and Social Security quite comfortably. So if the church wants my service, this is what I think I can do. And it's a wonderful stage to be. I retired at 65, at 72, and at 80, and 82. And I don't know if my health is going to dictate my next stage, but I'm going to modify it. If I am bedridden, I can form a group of people who are bedridden who pray every day for the church. That's how I'm interested. Whatever the place is, a little imagination. The church is dying for lack of imagination, not just the same. I talk to retired people here. What are you doing? Well, you know, most of our congregation is kind of, oh, great day. Just take hold of what you have left, and you may have more than you think you do. But I would like to challenge all of you who still have a little vinegar and zip in your life to use it in some imaginative way. Back in your mind, there's something you've wanted to do for years. You couldn't do it because you had to pastor this little church and do this and this. You're free now. So do it. Do not let the church die from a lack of imagination. The elderly have imagination. We call it vision. We call it dreams. Whatever we call it, it can be a new day. I am very much sold on this hope. This is going to work. We're going to have a whole new image and impression of what it is to be the elderly, the seasoned, the vital ones in the church. I'm pleased to be a part of it, and I look to hear from you what you're doing in the future. And maintain your sense of humor.
Amen.
That's the surest sign of the grace of God is humor, because it doesn't take yourself too seriously. Just think about it. Look what I'm doing. It's ridiculous, really.